we're looking at as possible now that we know universes and other universes exist. But Al Bielek claimed to be a time traveler who went back in time as part of a secret government project, and he began sharing his predictions of the world. During World War II, it was rumored that the American government might have been conducting sketchy experiments as part of a war effort under the radar. And so the tests were called USS Eldridge. And there has been movies made as the Philadelphia experiment. So television gets hold of some of these stories and makes some great videos or movies, and then they become part of our ACE Folklife history, travel and transportation. But the secrets and the cover-ups happened during the experiment that was left a mystery, because some people say they were testing out microwaves back then before we had microwave radar that we know about. And since he was born, Al Bielek, he was born in 1927. But later on, he meets a brother of his father, and there was a movie about his. It says, as Al went through life, he was known as the walking encyclopedia, classmates said, because he didn't really understand why his brain was able to retain so much information. He didn't know what he learned a lot of. On the 60th birthday, the clues started coming together, and he began understanding. So in 1988, Bielek was watching a science fiction movie, The Philadelphia Experiment, and the film was based on a true story. So the movie didn't seem comprehensible to anyone other than Al. During the movie, he got a chilling and unsettling feeling that his body had seen all of this before, an undetectable ship. And so the film, The Philadelphia Experiment, portrays the government experiment dating back to World War II. So it made good movie. The U.S. Navy was trying to figure out a way to make their ship be completely invisible to radar transmissions, so the governments wouldn't detect them. But anyway, there's a government experiment. Whether it went wrong or not, the device was activated October 28, 1943, at the Philadelphia Naval Yard. Now, you know, there's conspiracy theory, and there's other people that say they were really trying to make something disappear, that we're 100 years at all time of our light and of our radar, and using infrared, microwave, and radio, and every kind of wave you can imagine. So they say that the ship completely vanished, but there's a movie about it, the USS Eldridge Tragedy and the Philadelphia Experiment, if you want to read it. Tommy, what else can we put on the beginning of this first radio show for 2012? History by the day, pop culture, I guess. We've got human stories we're going to cover.
Well, here's the thing. People.
You mentioned somebody else besides Ford. Who else? Bell.
Fred Bell.
Why don't you put Bell in this part? Because you knew of him too. What's his name?
Well,
I'll look
see, all this. Let me just say this: people out there, you can believe all the stories. Like that whole story written about the Philadelphia experiment is all twisted as well. Al Bielek went back in time. He was the one that was on the ship when it disappeared. That ship came back every 20 years, went back and forth in time, and that's when Cameron was supposed to get on the ship with him. And when it came back, it was 20 years later. And when right before he died, when I was still friends with him, they offered him $4 million to go back in time to kill somebody. Because when they went, this is the truth. This is from his words. Whether you want to believe it or not is your choice. He said they offered him $4 million to go back in time to kill somebody. Because when it first happened, somebody was killed, and it changed the government system. One person dying in a family changes the whole history of that family. So he was supposed to go back and kill somebody before that person so that that family would be here in the present. Took it, but when I saw him 6 months later, he looked about 20 years younger. All right? He looked ancient when I met him, when I was talking to him. And the next time I saw him, after he told us that, he looked so much younger. So I'm not sure, but he died rather not too much later. He told me after a certain date, they can kill him. During that date, the date was, you could check it online, the whole East Coast from Canada down to Florida had a blackout. They never, ever talked about what it was, ever. from the top to the bottom was a complete blackout. That was the day the Montauk Project came back on a cycle. And that's why Sargel and I went up to the vortex where Tesla created the invention, just so you know, where that work was being done. All right, it's a cycle. Now, that ripped a hole in the vortex, which opened up the UFO world. It opened up the demonism and every creature coming into this planet greatly more than it ever was. The government has been spending the past 50 years trying to close it. This is the inside stuff. I can tell you because I worked up there. I saw multiple creatures, entities, you name it. We saw it. We filmed it. And, I mean, I was being followed by ships all the time. I mean, when I was on Long Island, I saw the black helicopters that disappeared right over my head and things like that. And there was some kind of creature running around in the mountains. I saw the Bigfoot up there as well. I saw the Hershey monkey, which was part of the Montauk Project experiment. So I got involved with it, not directly. I didn't go sit in the chair, which a few people I know did. But they're pretty messed up in the mind, the ones that actually did. It changes people because they break down the molecular structure of a person's brain. But then they created the Montauk Project, was out on Montauk, Long Island. And that is one of the worst things the government has ever did. If you want that story, we can talk about it, but I don't think it's a pleasant thing that you want to hear. You might not want to believe it or not. The government was taking children from all over the world and doing experiments on them there. About a half hour away. Well, all right. So, yeah, within a half hour, okay, I'm sorry. Actually, my partner's asking me to eat. But when that happened, they were taking children and doing brain operations and trying to make these robot program brains of these children. Many of them died. And that's when Nikolai...
Is this before you and I had pieces in us, since we're cyborgs and alien UFO deities from out in space somewhere?
Well, look, I've been reincarnated on this planet so many times, the alien part of me is gone.
Really?
So I don't accept it.
So
yeah.
our lower part
after
of
Atlantis
aliens are disappeared, folks. We're so far up there in the... Well, I was hoping to talk about that some too, the different levels, because you're...
Well, you can talk about your alien level, but I don't want to talk about anything because that was before I was in Atlantis. That was the first incarnation into this reality I came into as an alien, for a word. I mean, just
weren't
a
you
person
on
from
Moon
another planet.
before Atlantis, though? Because Atlantis is a common, like they say Lemuria.
No.
But you know, when people are talking about Lemuria, they're talking about recent, because that wasn't even a word.
Again, you're talking about man's translations of time, which they have no clue about.
And
they don't know the day or month or year.
Well, the people I work with off planet now in this reality, we call them above the omniverse, but for the lower people that you've been in contact with, like Anna Hayes, because you lived with her, and M31 in the Andromeda Galaxy, they're putting out the good, bad, and ugly, depending on whether you're reincarnated and you know how to use your energy and your Merkaba and come in light or dark or spin out to the other planets and the planes. So we're going to have to talk about in the UFO Association length, width, and depth, not to mention the various dimensions. And then you talk about the gods and the three, the astral plane. And now where do you cut off your astral plane? It's got to be above what they say, the planes, the atmosphere, and the stratosphere, right? All the way up through the sun.
That's all that. The whole solar system is part of the physical realm. Stars, universes, galaxies is all part of the physical realm, the first realm. The exoplane is the second realm.
See with your light, because man cannot see outside of the Milky Way galaxy at the present time, as far as I know. Now, people like you and me can, but we've died, so we have a better point of reference.
Understanding your abilities.
Space.
Everybody's soul, TJ. Everybody's soul. People out there, the definition of what you really are is soul. When your body dies, you are that.
Above the global consciousness.
Here's the thing. Local. I don't like the word consciousness.
Well, we've got to start somewhere with planets and people, because
awareness.
We're in cyberspace, and we have to use voice and vocal and radio waves.
It's
So
called
we gotta
awareness.
start.
Once you leave, soul doesn't need vibrations of psychic realms and all those kind of words. It doesn't, because it doesn't vibrate at that level. So
Well,
once
all
it leaves
the
this
children
reality,
on the planet, let's just start with all the children are now pretty much part of the critical mass consciousness age. And we decided at 7 billion, we would have the tipping point to start teaching people. That was an agreement with the 9 gods, if you want to say ancient alien theorist. All those
well,
above,
here's the thing.
below.
Again,
We got to start
there's
somewhere.
there's only a few people on this planet that can teach anything above what Christians and spiritualists, New Age speakers can teach. They're limited to such a low level of teaching. And very few people want to hear anything outside of that. People want to hear about beautiful things.
Smith and Corey Good and Gaia and David Wilcox. There's a list.
They're all programmed. They're all programmed.
Well, they're all in show business and entertainment with Gaia and out in Hollywood.
You could tell stories. People love stories. People don't love the truth. People don't want to know how bad Trump is. The people don't want to know how good Biden is. People want to make stories and make them bad, make them good, make them whatever they want them to be.
And they both work with lobbyists, government, and military-industrial complex, and the unilateral.
Well, you can't become president. You can't become president unless you're a millionaire.
Wow! Now you're talking Skull and Bones and the Bohemian.
Well, that's Bush. The 2 Bushes was Skull and Bones, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. Alex Jones brought it out. The video was put online. Nobody cared to even watch it. They didn't even care. It was only about 30 seconds long.
What happened to Alex Jones?
He's out there, but they're trying to block him every which way. Well, no, they're trying to block him. He's putting too much information that people need to hear. I mean, I'm dealing with a person that's feeding me all the information about the virus. I could give you 100 documents saying that how fake it is, but I don't want to accept it because basically people are dying.
That it is let's just say for entertainment. I put this under entertainment. Allegedly, that some people believe that people 5 years ago that knew of Africa and all the goodwill that Mr. Gates and his wife were doing, that they wanted to make sure that we could cure all the SARS, maybe flus, maybe even what my brother died of, AIDS, which would be wonderful. If we went ahead and did that, maybe at the same time we could keep up with those people for what we call in the biomedical world or biology or pharmacology or whatever you want to call it, part of the governments and the economic growth of sustainability for the planet. Each human would become part of a class which we call, my daughter was in 4 of them. Very rare does anyone get to be in one, but they're like labs. What do you call them, Tommy? I forgot. Where the people are all part of a study, and it would be like with even the epidemic we have now. We know pandemics roll around every few 100 or 1,000 years, and we completely
a lab rat.
Well, basically a lab rat. That's what my daughter called herself. But you can look into it, Tommy. But it's under integrative medicine, and when we're trials, they go into trials. That's what they're called, trials. So I believe that there is, I'll just call it a conspiracy theory for lack of, for entertainment purposes, we'll say that a lot of people did wonder if it got out of control in people carrying it from other countries into our country. So that is an allegation. It's non-provable at this point, but there is a woman from China that said she could prove certain things and asked for asylum or whatever you call it from the text. That China won't come get her from America.
Well, wasn't it the president or whatever he's called, his wife that said she was abducted, and she was talking about aliens and stuff, and it was pretty hard to cover that up because when somebody that famous is talking about it, like
you're not
everybody
talking
gets to hear
President Trump, his wife, are you?
No, in China.
Oh, in China, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
the
true.
The woman that came out about it. Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't
But
say that's true without studying it and researching.